Wow. Every now and then things just get flaky. So, welcome to Through a Glass Darkly Radio. You're listening to us on United Public Radio. And the intro music was Mark of the Doomslayer by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Definitely check out his YouTube channel. He's got a lot of great tracks. I typically don't use them because while they are royalty free, if he decides to change his mind at some point, like I'm screwed. Maybe it just. Speaking of royalty free, I got a copyright dispute on music that I was using for a future video that's going to come out. Of course, I had a license that I paid for that music through my Storyblocks subscription, which I pay $360 a year. So suffice to say, I'm feeling pretty frisky today. I was pretty pissed off. So fortunately, I submitted a counter dispute, and the claimant kind of withdrew because I have rights to use that music because I pay for them. Anyway, I'm in a little sour mood from that. But today there's a few things that I'm going to talk about. However, and I thought about this since last week, or the show that I pre-recorded last week. And the thought is that when people are coming here, if they're coming here for the first time, they're going to expect to be hearing from the jump the topic that's actually being marketed, which in this case is shadow people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with that because that's kind of the promise. And then after that, I'm going to cover the Iran situation. For people who don't know me, I have unique expertise. I wrote my master's thesis on Iran's nuclear program and attacking it, or preventing a proliferation spiral if they do get nukes, when I was in graduate school 19 years ago. And not a lot has changed. There's a few things that have changed, but not a lot. But I'll just give my thoughts and comments on that. There's that. And then there's also, I had an interesting sighting last night that I recorded on video. I'm pretty confident I know what it is, but I just want to see how the audience reacts to it. And it'll also help. I don't know. I could be wrong, though. I could be wrong in what I think it is, but I'll save that toward the end as well, so that folks who are here to hear the shadow people content hear the shadow people content. All right. Again, there are two other things that I'm constantly repeating. YouTube has been systematically unsubscribing subscribers. So if you think you're a subscriber, please do me a favor right now and confirm that you're a subscriber. If you are a subscriber and are not subscribed, please resubscribe when you get a chance. I can't believe I have to do this, but like, this platform is it's I don't know if they're doing it on purpose, if it's just sloppy algorithms. I have no idea. I don't want to like act like I'm being persecuted. I just know that I've asked this question before and people have raised their hands and said, yeah, I was subscribed and now I'm not. I talked to kind of my wife's uncle. He's like, oh, I thought I had subscribed, but I'm not subscribed anymore. So I don't know if YouTube does periodic cleanup, but please do resubscribe if you're unsubscribed. And if you're not subscribed, I'd appreciate it. I hope I earn your subscription by the time that we're finished this. And I completely forget what the second item was. Damn it. I totally forget what the second item is. All right, maybe it will come to me at some point in the future. Well, there's a third item that I just reminded. So the copyright dispute that I had was based on an experimental video that I did that's going to be appearing this Wednesday. And it's experimental for a number of different things. So I have a future guest. His name is Benton Ryer, and he's been doing for 20 some years these healing events where he practices Shinto mysticism, shamanism, etc., and people swear by it. there was also, again, I'm going to tell you what it's in it for me. By the way, I remember the third item, so we'll get to that in a second. Uh, uh, what's in it for me is that there was another video that was much lower production value that did something similar with somebody who was not as good as of a practitioner, but it had like 208,000 views. I don't have a single video in my 700 videos that have ever done that reach. So with that, we're just gonna on Wednesday. I've experimented with that. We'll see how it goes. The second part of that experiment is I I always do 3 thumbnails for every episode, but they're still in my usual format. Like it's a very distinct style. I changed the style for the other 2, so you won't even recognize it's me if you just look at the thumbnail. Um, I'm just curious to see if that makes any difference. So that's part of the experiment. The other 2 are much more simple. They're simpler thumbnails. So anyway, that's item number 2. Item number 3 is I am, and this is just what I always tell folks. The next portion of this, when I go into the shadow people, I prompted AI to generate me a script. I read the script in my own voice, but I read the script. Sometimes I will change things on the fly if I don't agree with word usage and things like that. Like every time I see the made up word humankind, I want to scream. It's either mankind or humanity. If you think mankind is sexist, then use humanity. If you use the word humankind, I will not take you seriously at all. It's a ridiculous word and I don't like it. So there'll be times like that. Or if the AI comes with something that I completely disagree with, I will mention that too. But I want people to know what they're getting. This channel is all about seeking the truth. And it's just my way of experimenting. I'm a very busy person. This is the only portion of my channel where I use AI scripts. In my interviews and everything else, it's all organic. But I want to make sure I make the distinction so people know, because that's just who I am. Anyway, well, I'm going to go through a few of the comments that are left, and then I'll get started. So let's see. Okay. All right, here's where we are. Yeah, yay for shadow beings. Yeah, Logan, we'll get to it at the end. I don't know if you were here at the very beginning, but we'll get to it at the end because people are expecting shadow people. They're not expecting geopolitics yet. Yeah. Okay, so you heard me. So Scott Ian is saying, then tie them together. Shadow people of Iran, the untold story. Yeah, it could be. It could be a huge bucket. So Gray Owl's writing the shadow people category strikes me as a potential bucket that many different things may find themselves labeled as, perhaps some MIBs, Jinn, Vegas cats, etc., etc. Hey, how you doing, Spiritual Ascension? Good to see you. Okay, Roger Claiborne is writing. Good thing I remembered what time you were going live today. YouTube failed to show your channel was now live. Not a surprise, Roger. Also, make sure you're a subscriber. Oh, hey, Vet Girl 84. This is the first time I've seen you, so welcome to the channel. So you're writing, okay, back with tea and coffee. I had misplaced my coffee pots hat. By the way, I always start at 6:10. You'll see that on the ticker. So when you were saying that, I was trying to. That's why I kept re-showing yours. I was trying to like click the button so I could just respond using the. But there's a dozen other things going on as I run the intro. So, hey, Sparky's Paranormal and Outdoors. Okay, Gray Owl writes, YouTube is a system that works against the individual and the distribution of knowledge that has not been authorized 50-50, that this comment will even appear without being binned by the ever watchful algo. Okay. Hey, Dave ADV, I guess I'll call you. First time live listener, but I've been digesting a ton of your content the past few months. Hey, I appreciate you, Dave. And if you're subscribed, just double check. If you're not a subscriber, I hope to earn your subscription. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, Dave ADV, weird synchronicity that I've been having, heavily digging into shadow people this week, and then tonight's. Yeah, there's since I've been covering all these topics, I sound like a crazy person to people who are just joining and keep becoming new. I don't care. There are three things that have happened to me. Okay. Precognitive dreams, not a lot, but you can see actual examples where I'll just write my dream down and then 6 to 10 months, actually, in the case I'm thinking of, 9 months later, something will happen. Right. So the Missoula Starbucks strike and Amazon strike was one of them. Just stuff that has nothing to do with me. It's completely random. But anyway, three things: precognition, weird stuff with birds, particularly raptors and hummingbirds. I don't know. I don't, so hawks, owls, and ravens. I see them more than normal people should. And then the third thing is synchronicities. So I'll give you an example. So James Iandoli, I messaged him on Twitter, and I said, "Hey, I'd like to interview you for your show for my show. Are you interested?" And he just said, "That's strange. I had a dream that I was on your show last night." So like stuff like that happens all the time with me. So it might be just on your end, but it might be connected to this show. Anyway, enough craziness. Okay, so I'm rolling with boner dice. I thought I got molested by a shadow being, but it was just the backlighting offset from my nightlight. Oh, I'm rolling with boner dice. That's still the greatest name. Okay. Ethereal encounters unveiled. I think you're the first time I think you've commented, but I could be wrong. Um, good to have you here, Ethereal Encounters. Logan Clark writes, I had a sleep paralysis episode. The entity told me this is all a simulation. Wild stuff. Yeah, the only time I've had sleep paralysis, I just go into a rage and I yell Jesus Christ, but I don't yell it in like a religious way. I yell it like in an angry way, and I always break out of it. But I never see any beings. I'm in that hypnagogic state and I can't move. Vet girl, again, pleasure to have you. Dave at ADV. A lot of us are tapped into some specific mutual field right now. I think could be. Spiritual Ascension writing, yeah, it's actually wild. I don't often dream or remember my dreams, but 2 nights ago, I dreamt of a tall, shadow-hatted strangular. Yikes, strangler, basically. No, this is definitely not a well, this is not a pre-record. The last episode was last week's was a pre-record because I was out, but this is not a pre-record. Yeah. Okay, I'm just Logan Clark, telepathic or vocal messaging, just curious. Yeah. Okay, Logan Clark wrote, I didn't see anything. It was just present. Logan Clark writes, had to be had to have been telepathic. All right, let's go. Let's go. I think I'm caught up. Just gonna highlight the last. Oh, there's still another one coming up. Yeah. Okay, here we go. All right, In the Shadows, unveiling the mystery of shadow people. So we're just going to go into the intro now. A figure at the foot of the bed. Imagine waking in the dead of night, heart pounding, unable to move. In the corner of your room stands a dark silhouette, human shaped but featureless. It's blacker than the darkness around it. A shadow person watching you. You blink and the figure dissolves into the wall. Was it just a trick of groggy vision or something beyond the ordinary? Countless people across cultures and history have reported these eerie, shadowy figures, often in similarly paralyzed, half-awake states. In this episode, we'll delve deep into the phenomenon of shadow people, blending psychology and neurology with folklore and the paranormal. We'll explore historical legends of night spirits and ancient demons, the modern emergence of the infamous Hat Man, scientific explanations like sleep paralysis and hypnagogic hallucinations, and paranormal theories ranging from interdimensional beings to spiritual parasites. Along the way, we'll hear firsthand testimonies, insights from researchers, and even see how pop culture has embraced these shadowy presences. By the end, we'll consider whether shadow people, sleep paralysis demons, jinn, and other entities might all be facets of a broader class of non human intelligences. Let's start with the first and most obvious question. What are shadow people? Shadow people are typically described as dark, human-shaped silhouettes, essentially patches of shadow that move with intent. Witnesses say these figures are jet black and featureless, with no facial details. Often only a vague humanoid outline is seen, sometimes a tall male presence, occasionally appearing to wear a long coat or a wide-brimmed hat, which has given rise to one especially notorious subtype, named the Hat Man. In rare cases, people report the shadow had glowing red eyes, heightening the terror of the encounter. Shadow figures are usually fleeting and elusive. They might dart away if you try to look at them directly. Initially, many reports were only out of the corner of the eye, but intriguingly, some experiencers claim they've seen shadow beings head on for several seconds. A chilling aura of dread often accompanies these encounters. The beings tend to lurk in doorways, corners, or at the bedside, sometimes even seen looming over a sleeping person. And when they depart, they may simply melt into walls or ceilings. Unlike classic ghost apparitions, which might appear as white, misty figures or recognizable human spirits, shadow people are opaque, solid black masses with no discernible clothing or features. This has led to some to interpret them as a distinct phenomenon, not ordinary ghosts, but perhaps spirits trapped in a limbo state that can only manifest as shadows or entities that deliberately choose a shadowy form. The central questions remain. Are these figures mere illusions, tricks of our eyes and brain, or could they be something truly paranormal? To find answers, it helps to see how such shadowy entities have been viewed through history and across cultures. So, as an example, Henry Fuseli's 1781 painting, The Nightmare, dramatically illustrates an old belief about nocturnal attacks. A demon or nightmare, as in the horse, squatting on a sleeper's chest. Such artworks are historical anchors to the sleep paralysis phenomenon, where victims feel a malicious presence or weight on their chest, but are unable to move or cry out. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about shadow beings in history and folklore. Reports of dark, spirit-like figures long predate the internet era buzz about shadow people. Across world folklore and religion, we find shadowy entities that echo today's experiences. In ancient Mesopotamia, circa 2400 BC, legends speak of Lilitu, a female night demon who creeps in by night, a predecessor to the later Lilith of Judaic tradition. Described as an owl-footed half-human demoness who steals upon sleepers. Such demons were blamed for pressing on people at night and sucking the breath from them, causing terror and paralysis. In fact, the very word nightmare originates from the old Anglo-Saxon belief in a nightmare, not a bad dream, but an actual supernatural crone or hag that sat on a sleeper's chest to suffocate them. Many cultures personified that crushing nightmare, that crushing nighttime fear. In medieval Europe, it was often a witch or an incubus, otherwise known as a sex-crazed demon, having a wicked way with their paralyzed victims. The famous 7th century Greek physician, Paulus Ageneta, suggested that the panic of waking up immobile was caused by Pan, the mischievous nature god, leaping onto the chest of the sufferer. Each era and society put its own face on these phenomena. Brian Sharpless, a clinical psychologist, notes that cultural scripts shape what people see. East Asians today are more often report a ghost, whereas on Pemba Island in Zanzibar, people tell of attacks by a giant black bat creature called the Popobawa. Every culture puts their own little spin on it, Sharpless says, but the core experience, waking up paralyzed, sensing an inhuman presence, is strikingly universal. Many ancient traditions feature shadow-like spirits. The Greeks and Romans spoke of literal shades, shadow souls of the underworld. In Japan, folklore tells of the Kageona, or shadow woman, a yokai ghost that appears only as the shadow of a woman cast on a wall, with no person attached. In the Middle East, Islamic lore describes the jinn, invisible entities made of smokeless fire, who coexist with humans. Some accounts describe jinn as almost like shadow humans living in a parallel shadow universe, hidden from our senses. Because jinn are shapeshifters, many believers today suspect that encounters with shadow people might actually be glimpses of jinn spirits intruding on our world. Meanwhile, among indigenous Americans, we find similar themes. The Choctaw people speak of a dreaded shadow being called Nalusa Chito, or Impa Shillup, described as a great black being that eats souls. According to Choctaw legend, if a person allows evil or depressing thoughts to overtake them, Nalusa Chito can creep inside and devour their soul. Choctaw tradition holds that every person has an outside shadow, Shilom Bish, essentially a wandering shadow double of the self, and an inner soul, inside shadow, Shilup. After death, the outside shadow lingers on earth as a restless, moaning shade, which might appear as a dark flicker to the living. This concept is uncannily close to modern shadow people lore. Such cultural interpretations often cast these shadow entities as omens or malevolent forces, tricksters or predators that feed on human fear. We see a recurring idea, darkness with intent, a shadow that isn't just the absence of light, but a presence with its own agency. The Hat Man, a modern shadow archetype. While shadowy phantoms are ancient, the Hat Man is a relatively modern legend that has exploded in popularity over the last 2 decades. Descriptions of the Hat Man are remarkably consistent worldwide. Witnesses see the tall silhouette of a man in a brimmed hat, sometimes also wearing a long coat, lurking in bedrooms at night. Unlike the classic old hag or demon of folklore, the Hat Man typically does not physically touch or choke his victims. He just stands and watches, emanating dread. People often encounter him during sleep paralysis episodes, that hazy state when you awaken but your body remains paralyzed. Victims report being conscious and seeing a half-dark figure at the foot of the bed or peering from a corner, featureless except for the hat. One experiencer described how the figure's face and body are obscured, but it's the tall silhouette of a man in a brimmed hat, somewhere between sleep and consciousness. Unlike other nightmare creatures, which varied across cultures, the Hat Man's wide brim hat is an oddly specific detail that few people would list among their innate fears. This has led some to speculate he might be an interdimensional being or a kind of Jungian archetype emerging in many minds independently. So where did the Hat Man come from? Historically, 2001 was a turning point. On April 12, 2001, the late-night paranormal radio show, Coast to Coast AM, hosted a program on shadow people, featuring a guest who invited listeners to share drawings of the entities they had seen. The response was explosive. The show's website was inundated with eerie sketches of dark silhouettes. That same year, author Heidi Hollis published the first book on shadow people, and became a frequent radio guest spreading the lore. Hollis's accounts matched many others: dark humanoid shapes that flicker in and out of peripheral vision, and sometimes jump onto a sleeping person's chest to choke them. She controversially concluded that shadow people are not ghosts at all, but malevolent extraterrestrials, essentially evil aliens in shadow form, and claimed they can be repelled by invoking the name of Jesus. This sensationalist theory, alien shadow parasites, vulnerable to spiritual defense, resonated with some experiencers and drew skepticism from others. But it cemented shadow people and the Hat Man as staples of contemporary paranormal lore. Can somebody double check that bit about Holly Hollis? I don't recall that. So just if somebody can check while I'm going through this and read through the chat, and I would prefer to get that correct. So an AI can oftentimes be wrong. So just check. I just want to make sure that Holly's views are accurately reflected. Throughout the 2000s, reports of the Hat Man surged on forums and social media, with thousands of people asking, has anyone else seen this guy in a hat? By the late 2010s and 2020s, the Hat Man became a bit of an internet urban legend, yet one with an unsettling core of sincerity, since unconnected witnesses around the world described nearly identical encounters. This shadow figure became so infamous that he even turned into a meme and a mascot of sorts. For instance, on sites like Reddit and 4chan, users ironically dubbed him the Benadryl Hat Man, noticing that people who abuse certain drugs often see a hat-wearing shadow. More on that shortly. Rolling Stone magazine noted that the Hat Man has become a dominant character within the digital genre, fueled by TikTok videos and creepypasta stories, priming a new generation to recognize the figure in their own bedrooms. Some psychologists suggest this online spread creates a feedback loop. Once the Hat Man image enters the cultural imagination, suggestible people are more likely to hallucinate a similar figure during episodes of sleep paralysis. In the words of one researcher, if you wake up in a panic, unable to move, why wouldn't your mind conjure up the image of that terrifying thing you read about online? Now, it's worth noting that not everybody finds the Hat Man concept purely folkloric. Many experiencers insist he is real and distinct. They point out that reports came from people who had never heard of Hat Man at the time. The widespread similarity of accounts, the hat, the tall shadow, the intense terror, suggests to them that it's not just suggestibility. Some even suspect the Hat Man might be an individual entity, like a specific demon or astral being, who shows up to certain people, whereas other shadow figures are more common. So what makes the Hat Man different from other shadow people? Distinctive attire aside, witnesses often say the Hat Man feels more deliberately malevolent. He doesn't just flit away like peripheral visions do. He tends to stay longer, to linger, watching as if aware. Sometimes he is reported with a solid outline, hat, shoulders, while lesser shadow people appear as amorphous blobs or wisps. Yet, importantly, Hat Man almost never physically attacks or touches the experiencer. In old folklore terms, he's more a watcher or sentinel than an incubus. Why a hat? Paranormal researcher Rosemary Ellen Gully intriguingly speculates that if these entities are shape-shifting beings, more in her theory soon, perhaps shadow people wear hats and cowls to cover up imperfect, non-human heads. In other words, a brimmed hat might cleverly disguise strange features like horns or an oddly shaped skull. If a creature can't perfectly mimic a human form, it's a wild idea, but one that highlights just how distinct the Hat Man archetype has become within the broader shadow people phenomenon. Testimonies from the shadow, experiencer encounters. Let's pause from the analysis and hear some firsthand accounts. Many who encounter shadow people vividly remember them and the fear years later. Often these stories share common elements: waking at night, seeing a solid black figure, either moving silently or standing and observing, and an overwhelming feeling of paralysis or terror. Here are a few anonymized testimonies that capture the experience. We were lying in bed in a weak glow from the night light. I became aware of a presence, and suddenly a figure moved into our bedroom. It silently glided to the foot of the bed. It looked like black smoke or a shadow, though more solid than smoke, but less material than a real person. I could tell it was conscious of us, watching us as we lay there. Oddly, I felt more awed and curious than afraid at first. My wife had been asleep. I thought I might be imagining it until she suddenly started breathing differently. I whispered, "Honey, do you see anything?" And to my shock, she replied, "You mean that thing standing at the foot of the bed?" We both saw it. We lay there frozen for about 10 minutes, watching this shadow person. It didn't move or attack. Then it slowly faded away, just dissolved into nothing over a few seconds. We never said or saw anything like it again, but we'll swear to what happened. And here's the next story. I first saw a shadow person walking through my kitchen late at night. It was the shape of a man, pure black, and it walked quickly across the room before I could react. I was freaked out, but I convinced myself I must have been seeing things. Then, about a month later, a friend visiting my apartment saw the exact same thing in the same spot, described the same silhouette. That really scared us. Over the next year, a few other house guests saw him too. Sometimes we'd just catch a glimpse of a tall, dark figure out of the corner of our eye. Interestingly, he never seemed to acknowledge us or try to interact, almost like we were ghosts to him. The shadow man would just appear and disappear, indifferent. It got to the point where we'd say, there he goes again. Still terrifying, but at least he didn't seem to mean much harm. Craziness, I know. All right, the third account here. I was about 10, and I woke up in the middle of the night feeling afraid. I looked toward the door and saw a tall shadow man just standing there, half inside my room. He had a sort of wide hat shape on top, like a fedora. I couldn't see any eyes or face, just the black silhouette. I wanted to scream, but I felt like I couldn't move or make a sound. The shadow man just kept watching. I had the sense he was just enjoying my fear, like it was feeding him. Eventually, I must have passed out from fear, and when I came to, it was morning and he was gone. For years, I thought I must have just had a nightmare. But when I got older, I found stories online about others seeing the Hat Man, and it blew my mind. I realized it wasn't just me. I'm just going to stop right there. The word we have for a bad dream that is passed on from the Anglo-Saxon language that we talked about is nightmare. It literally came from the night hag phenomenon, as we discussed earlier. So every time you say nightmare, it's based on this phenomenon. Based on this phenomenon going way, way back to Anglo-Saxon times. You're talking 5th century AD or earlier. So just something to put in there, put in your head. Now, these accounts, while wildly anecdotal, showcase key motifs: middle of the night appearances, shared experiences with multiple witnesses, the idea of the entity possibly feeding on fear, and the chilling recognition of the Hat Man image, even among people who hadn't learned of it beforehand. Such stories blur the line between hallucination and haunting, and they raise an unsettling thought echoed by many experiencers. What if these shadow beings are not just in our heads? Before we go further down the paranormal road, though, let's examine what science and psychology have to say. All right. I think now's probably a decent time to go and examine comments, and then we'll get into the science of the shadow, sleep paralysis, and the brain. All right. I'm just going to find where I left off. Okay. We should be okay. Okay. Gray Owl's writing the hand that throws dice in the alley has many talents, I'm sure. Are you two, the shadow and thyself, going to go on a second date? Ah, Z Sun Dragon. Yes, this is live. You were stuck in another chat. I got it. Okay. Wait, Preston? Preston Dennett's here? Hey, Sun Dragon. I don't. Is Preston Dennett really here, or is that a different Preston? Anyway, regardless, I'm gonna keep going. So observers just asking. I think the group: do people who report shadow people also have poltergeist encounters? I would imagine there's probably some large percentage of them that do. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything that Preston's posting here for whatever reason. Oh, Anjali, good to see you. It's always good to see you. So Anjali's writing, I started seeing shadow people in my bedroom at night as soon as I started working at DIA. Yeah, I'm curious what that sort of phenomenon is and what drives that. Because again, there are many things it could be. Could it be operatives from the future? Could it be demonic influences? Could it be interdimensional entities? Could it be people just in a different timeline at a phase with us? And Jolly, were they malicious or were they just kind of in the background doing their own thing? I'd be curious. Okay. Okay, loading Mike is writing either Mike or Mick, depending on regardless. I was in sleep paralysis on my couch viewing my kitchen, a white figure standing there. I said, okay, I don't care that you were there. I'm going back to sleep. That's good. Okay. Why am I not seeing? Anyway, spiritual ascension. I just stood there in my dream, eyeballed the shadowy mass, and chanted, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ. Yeah, could be. And Jolly's responding, I didn't experience any paralysis. I sat straight up in my bed and gasped, and it just disappeared. Interesting. Very interesting. And then observers asking, same type of being seen on DMT or other chemicals. I haven't heard anything like that. That doesn't mean that they're not seen. Gray House writing within the shadow category, I would fence off the Vegas aliens basically by way of their behaviors, apparent objectives, activities, and subject matter surrounding their potential involvement. Okay, so Angeli's responding, not for me, literally silhouettes of men. Okay. And then Gray Owl is writing, are shadow people typically observers or watchers? I think what I read said the Hat Men are, but the other entities, the Hag is definitely somebody that strangles you, as are some other shadow people. Okay, spiritual ascension says first it tried to strangle me, then further into the dream I was walking down the street with a male friend in broad daylight, and it tried to strangle him too. Yikes. Okay, observers writing would be interesting to know a person's brainwaves, alpha, beta, gamma, theta during an encounter might be contributing to some encounters near sleep or during REM or not. Yeah, I would imagine it would be in theta, maybe. I know remote viewing is typically done in alpha. I'm not sure where beta or I think gamma is like extremely high frequent, that's kind of like the state that Bledsoe goes in. I think somebody please check me. I'm just doing this off of sheer memory. but I'm almost not. I'm like 95% sure alpha is for remote viewing, and theta is, astral projection. Like I don't know. I can't remember what beta is. Beta might just be normal day to day. Loading Mike is writing peripheral vision, same as when you've been up for over 2 to 3 days. You start seeing shadows in your peripheral. Yep, Heidi. Yeah, Heidi Hollis for sure is the one that started talking about this the most. So spiritual ascension writing, a cross was around my neck in the dream, even though I don't wear one. I lifted it and pointed it toward the shadow and rebuked it. And yep, it went away. Oh yeah, Delta. I forgot about Delta. Timepiece Adventures writing, observe it would either be a delta or theta state. My guess theta, which is more of a liminal state. Yeah, I forgot about Delta. Spiritual Ascension just says first and only dream I've ever had like that. Fred is writing, observer. My experience was near sleep, but I thought it was a dream, but was actually awake. Very weird. Yeah, hey, good to see you, Fast Mama Jamma. Yep, Shadow People is on the menu tonight. Yeah, I echo what Observer is saying. So again, for people who are listening, interesting. I'm sorry you all encountered this. Yeah, I'm sorry, y'all too. But crazy stuff. So Fast Mama Jamma is writing, Representative Burleson was in Mexico looking at the Nazca mummies in the Bugosphere. Jason H is writing, if you were a hat man, what kind would you wear? What do most of them wear? Like those Homburg hats, or I think it's called Homburg, or HOMBURG, or fedoras. I don't know what kind of hat I would wear. I'm trying to, probably one of those. I don't know what those pilgrim hats are called, but those big, funky pilgrim hats are creepy with the belt buckle on them, but you wouldn't see the belt buckle. You just see the silhouette. All right, Fred's writing, no worries, observer. I think they're lesser beings that we shouldn't be afraid of. We just have to be true to ourselves, be right with God, and let them know we're not weak. Spiritual Ascension writes, they literally just fade away. Gray Owl is writing, some of the things that I've observed via video analysis, inner cross sectionals, and the getting up to almost suggest that they are indeed specific operatives or agents of a system, a matrix or mainframe, if you will, that requires the odd service bulletin implemented or anomaly neutralized. Okay. So I could reason that the cat is perhaps a fixer of some kind of a particular model variant thereof. All right, Spiritual Ascension is writing, a gray owl either inserted into the dream by negative programmers or an aspect of the darkness within made manifest. Gray owl responds, almost sounds like the cat in the hat might be an interdimensional. It might be. The Spiritual Ascension responds, and played by Mike Myers, definitely red flag. Vet Girl 84, yep, exactly. Vet Girl 84 is writing, I'm wondering if Sun Dragon is in the wrong chat box. I don't know. Tech has been acting up lately. All right, so Gray Owl's asking, Anjali seems irresistible to consider orgs like the DIA as our reality's hat men. Fast Mama Jamma is saying, MSN made me have crazy dreams. Lots of people stop taking it because of the dreams. Alpha and theta for RV, Sean. Yeah. So theta, I think, is for ERV, extended remote viewing, and alpha is for coordinate remote viewing or controlled remote viewing, depending on whoever the who the practitioner is. Oh, I didn't. Yeah. Okay. I didn't see this. I didn't see your comment timepiece, like your next comment. I just kind of predicted it, maybe. Not that it's precognition. It was just analytical. Okay. Hey, Jonah Types Topside. Good to see you. So spiritual ascension is writing, I was fast asleep, so definitely deep sleep, Delta. Backwards hat, yeah. Okay, Vet Girl 84 writes, I got cats, so those night creepy crawlies haven't been able to get me since a very long time. Okay, Gray Owl's writing, gotta go with the 1950s Humphrey Bogart fedora. Hey, good to see Alpha Draco. Hello. Okay, that's what Hatman wears, a pilgrim hat. Oh, there's other things that say it's a horn, like is it a Hornberg or Homburg hat or a fedora? But I think the pilgrim hat would be the creepiest. Yeah, your familiars definitely have your back, Vet Girl 84. Yeah, minus the buckle, just a wide brim, spiritual ascension says. Alpha Draco saying, I prefer baseball caps. I've worn those as long as I can remember. Johnny Topside said, yeah, what if it's not a hat? What if it's like horizontal horns or something? Who knows? Okay, TBD is writing, the being that visited me, I think, was an archetype hiding the real entity. 10 out of 10 scary. It disappeared once my anger matched its malevolence. Yeah, anger. Again, I get really angry and I use the JC, Jesus Christ word out of in anger, not like in any. His hair is just shaped like that. Could be. It's a weird haircut. Okay, spiritual ascension is right. So I woke up from that dream surrounded by my cats in bed with me. Yeah, they're probably protecting you. Yeah, Scott Irons saying top hat like Mr. Peanut. That's how I often imagine them. But yeah. The Timepiece Adventures saying I would rock a sombrero. Yep. Gray Owl's writing pilgrim hat like in that great Stephen King, Johnny Depp movie, Secret Garden. Alpha Draco is writing, hi, Sean, it's been a while. How are things in your world? Just keep on keeping on. You know, we'll see. The channel's growing slow as molasses, as always. It's been frustrating, but I just keep. I can control what I can only control what I can control. All right, let's go back to our regularly scheduled program and get going. All right. Science of the shadow, sleep paralysis, and the brain. Modern neuroscience, science, and psychology offer natural explanations for most shadow person encounters, especially those that happen at the edge of sleep. The prime suspect is sleep paralysis, a well-documented phenomenon. Sleep paralysis occurs when the brain awakens from REM sleep before the body's muscle paralysis is released. In REM, the dream stage, our bodies are paralyzed, a state called atonia. So we don't act out our dreams. Usually the brain and body wake up together and we're none the wiser. But if you wake up while still paralyzed, you experience the bizarre state of being conscious and alert, but unable to move. Around 20% of people will experience at least one episode of sleep paralysis in their lives. And among those who do, studies find up to 75% experience vivid hallucinations along with the paralysis. In that half-dreaming state, it's common to feel a presence in the room or see figures that aren't really there. One study found 58% of people with sleep paralysis felt a presence in the room, usually something non-human. About 22% actually saw a person or figure, usually a stranger, often described as shadowy. These are informally called sleep paralysis demons, the mind's way of interpreting the eerie paralysis and any lingering dream imagery. Certain themes crop up repeatedly. Many people hallucinate that somebody is on top of them or choking them, which corresponds to the old hag demon on chest folklore. In fact, Chris French, a psychology professor specializing in paranormal experiences, notes that in the Middle Ages, these episodes were attributed to incubi or witches, a belief beautifully illustrated by Fuseli's The Nightmare Painting. Why do our brains conjure shadowy figures specifically? Neurologically, the combination of fear, darkness, and a semi-dream state is a recipe for seeing indistinct shapes. A person in sleep paralysis may open their eyes in dim light and see a vague form which the panic-stricken brain might interpret as a menacing intruder. Even outside of sleep paralysis, the human brain is wired to sense agency or predators in ambiguous stimuli, an evolutionary survival trait. So when waking in or walking in a dark house at 3 a.m., a curtain or coat thrown over a chair might easily be perceived as a lurking shadow, especially if one is anxious. Dr. Baland Jalal, a Harvard researcher on sleep paralysis, explains that cultural beliefs can have a profound impact on how people experience sleep paralysis. If you have paranormal beliefs and expect demons, you're more likely to see a demon. If you've never heard of shadow people, you might just sense a presence, but not visualize it clearly. Jalal also found that the more fearful people are about the experience, the more intense and frequent their hallucinations, essentially a fear feedback loop. It appears that the more people fear sleep paralysis, the more they experience it, and the stronger its effects are, he noted. This suggests that terror itself might amplify the incubus-like visions and turn a fleeting shadow into a full-on nightmare figure. Neuroscience has even induced shadowy presences in the lab. In a 2014 Swiss study, researchers stimulated a specific region of a woman's brain, the temporoparietal junction, and she suddenly felt a shadow person was directly behind her, mimicking her movements. It was an illusory projection of her own body schema, demonstrating how the brain can generate a sense of an unseen other. This might explain the common feeling of somebody right behind you in some shadow person encounters, even if you don't actually see them. Apart from sleep phenomena, other physiological factors can produce shadow people sightings. Hallucinogenic or deliriant substances are a big one. Many methamphetamine addicts, after long periods awake, report seeing shadow people scuttling around the edges of vision. One psychiatrist noted that with meth, people's hallucinations often take on a paranoid tone. They see shadowy figures specifically, not pink elephants or other random things. As one meth user described, you don't see shadow dogs or shadow birds or shadow cars. You see shadow people standing in doorways, walking behind you, coming at you on the sidewalk. Sleep deprivation combined with chemical stimulation seems to tap into the same primal fear circuits. Like diphenhydramine, DPH, an antihistamine found in over-the-counter sleep aids like Benadryl, is notorious for causing delirium and vivid hallucinations at high doses. Recreational drug forums have plenty of frightening trip reports where people deliberately took huge doses of DPH and encountered terrifying shadow entities, often a Hat-Man-like figure. This Benadryl Hat-Man became a common meme that sparked warnings. Indeed, an NIH report confirms DPH overdose can lead to agitation, confusion, delirium, hallucinations, among other dangerous effects. The fact that so many DPH abusers specifically see a man in a hat or other shadow people suggests the drug is unlocking a visual archetype the brain is predisposed to produce. Even extreme fatigue alone can do it. Ever notice when you're utterly exhausted, you might catch flickers in your peripheral vision? Microsleeps or mild hallucinations can make shadows seem to skitter. And of course, some mental illnesses like schizophrenia or neurological disorders can cause visual hallucinations of shapes or people that aren't there. Typically, those appear in peripheral vision as shadowy figures since our peripheral vision doesn't pick up detail and color well. Put simply, there are many mundane reasons why a person might genuinely perceive a shadow person when no actual entity exists. From the quirks of half-awake brain chemistry to substances or stress, science strongly leans toward shadow people being a kind of shared hallucination rooted in our sleep cycles and fear response. Yet, despite these explanations, not everyone is satisfied that all shadow people encounters reduce to brain tricks. Some cases involve multiple witnesses, like the husband and wife who both saw the same figure, which are hard to pin on an individual's sleep paralysis. And some encounters happen when people are fully awake and going about their business, like seeing a shadow person stroll through the kitchen in broad daylight. For those, psychologists might involve misperception, lighting quirks, etc., or even mild dissociative episodes. Still, a segment of experiencers and researchers think there's more to the story, something paranormal at play. All right, now we're going to move into, paranoid theories, ghosts, demons, or jinn. If shadow people aren't just illusions, what could they be? The paranormal camp has several theories, not mutually exclusive. Here are the leading interpretations. The first is ghosts of the deceased. One relatively straightforward theory is that shadow people are a type of ghost or residual haunt. Unlike classic ghost sightings, which often appear as white, misty figures or recognizable apparitions, these would be ghosts so weak or trapped that they appear only as dark outlines. Perhaps they are spirits that lack the energy to manifest fully, showing up as shadows. People who favor this idea note that some shadow figures seem to haunt specific locations, like the kitchen apartment story, much like traditional ghosts, and they often don't interact, suggesting they could just be an echo of a soul unaware of the living. However, others argue that typical ghost lore rarely describes entities as pure black silhouettes. So if they are ghosts, they're an unusual variety. All right, the next possible explanation is that they are demons or negative spirits. Given the terror and malevolence many feel from shadow people, another view holds that they are demonic entities or spiritual parasites. They could be non-human spirits that feed off fear, which might explain why they appear mainly to scare and upset. Indeed, one Reddit user theorized these beings literally feed off fear and negative emotions, gravitating toward people with turbulent lives, a modern take that mirrors the Choctaw belief of Nalusa Chido, preying on those with dark thoughts. Under this view, a shadow person isn't Uncle Bob's ghost. It's something inhuman, perhaps a low-level demon or trickster that enjoys tormenting sleepers. The idea of astral parasites that latch onto human energy is common in occult circles. Shadow people, being so often associated with dread, fit the profile of a parasitic entity that intentionally induces fear to siphon psychic energy. Some paranormal investigators claim to have even captured images of shadowy masses on video during haunted house explorations, suggesting an objective reality to them. Still, solid proof is elusive. Third explanation is the jinn, or interdimensional beings. A particularly compelling theory comes from researchers like Rosemary Ellen Gully. I don't know if I pronounced her name correctly, but we'll see. Who spent years investigating shadow people and their connection to Middle Eastern jinn lore. Ginley concluded that shadow people are a shape-shifted form taken by jinn, and that many shadow entities may actually be jinn in disguise. Jinn, according to Islamic tradition, are a race of intelligent beings made of subtle fire, invisible to us who live in a parallel dimension. Gully points out that jinn appear throughout history under different names, sometimes as ancient aliens, sometimes as gods or monsters in mythology. In her view, these jinn have a long-standing hidden presence in our world and might be behind many paranormal encounters, shadow people, hauntings, even alien abductions. In an interview, Gully noted the curious overlap that many shadow people experiencers are also ET experiencers, especially abductees, hinting that whether people think they saw a ghost, a demon, or a gray alien, they might all be encountering the same type of entity in different guises. The jinn theory also elegantly ties in the Hat Man. If jinn struggle to shapeshift perfectly into human form, features like a hat or cowl could hide their non-human traits. This theory essentially posits that shadow people are part of a broader class of non-human intelligences, ancient beings living alongside us, sometimes interacting in eerie ways. It's a grand unifying theory of the paranormal, though it requires one to accept the existence of jinn spirits in the first place, something science hasn't validated. Fourth theory is they could be time travelers or interdimensional travelers. A more exotic theory speculates that shadow people could be visitors from another dimension or timeline. Their dark, featureless appearance might be because they're out of phase with our reality. We only see a shadow of their true form. Perhaps they are time travelers whose stealth suits render them nearly invisible, and we catch brief glimpses. This is deep in speculative territory, but it's been proposed in paranormal forums. Some even suggest shadow people are the echoes of people who are living in a parallel universe, occasionally bleeding over into our perception. This could overlap with jinn ideas or be made its own sci-fi flavored concept. A fifth theory is that they're astral bodies or projections. Yet another hypothesis is that shadow figures might be astral projections of living people. In esoteric traditions, people's souls can allegedly leave the body and travel in astral form. These projections are sometimes described as connected to the body by a silver cord and can appear as a shadow or ghost-like form. So could that dark figure in your room actually be some living person's astral self accidentally wandering? Or, could it, right? It's far-fetched, but an interesting twist on the ghost interpretation, that the shadow beings might not even realize they're visiting someone because they're asleep elsewhere. Not everyone in the paranormal field agrees on any single identity for shadow people. Some authors even argue shadow people might not all be one thing. Some could be ghosts, others demons, others jinn, etc. There's debate, for example, on whether they are inherently evil. Many reports certainly describe them as menacing or accompanied by fear. But a majority of experiencers claim the shadow person they saw didn't feel evil, maybe just curious or even protective. Opinions diverge. Are these all malicious entities, or can they sometimes be benign observers or guardians? Paranormal lore is split here. What everyone agrees on is that they're unsettling and elusive. Even investigators who chase them find they would yield few answers. As one writer quipped, shadow people are like black holes of the spiritual world, absorbing light and clues, giving nothing back. What about shadow people versus sleep paralysis demons versus jinn? Are they all one and the same? By now, we've seen a spectrum of interpretations for shadow people, from hard science to folklore to high strangeness. A fascinating question emerges. How much overlap is there between all these creatures of the night? Could it be that the old hag of England, the jinn of Arabia, the modern hat man, and even aliens or ghosts are different cultural lenses on a single phenomenon? Some researchers think so. The 2015 documentary film, The Nightmare, which interviews dozens of sleep paralysis sufferers, even proposes that alien abductions, near-death experiences, and shadow people encounters can often be explained by sleep paralysis hallucinations. In other words, perhaps historically, a lot of demonic encounters and ghost sightings were actually people undergoing sleep paralysis, which was not understood scientifically until recent times. This would put shadow people and sleep paralysis demons squarely in the same bucket, just that one sounds folkloric and the other clinical. Indeed, sleep researchers often explicitly connect shadow people to the hypnagogic imagery of paralysis, the sensed presence, and the indistinct approaching shape. That's practically the textbook definition of a sleep paralysis hallucination. Now, on the flip side, paranormal theorists like Gully flip the script. Maybe these global experiences are unified not by a human brain quirk, but by an actual class of entities that have always been with us. Gully's work hints that jinn equals demons equals some aliens equals shadow people in different dress. She notes that jinn lore may underlie many ancient gods and spirit encounters, and that these beings can shapeshift to suit the culture of the times. If that's true, then what we call a sleep paralysis demon might literally be a demon or jinn taking advantage of our immobilized state. And the Hat Man could be a particularly powerful jinn or demon or interdimensional who has stepped up his appearances in recent decades, perhaps because we've given him so much attention and fear, which, as lore suggests, might empower such entities. It's a rather chilling thought that our collective fascination with shadow people is, in effect, summoning more of them or feeding them energy. And this isn't or was not even mentioned as a potential category, but perhaps these things are part of the collective unconscious in the sense that they're thought forms or tulpas, right? Could be something like that. Now, skeptics, of course, say there's no need to invoke jinn or ghostly explanations when neuroscience covers it. They'd point out that even the Hat Man's distinct costume can be rationalized. As Chris French observed, since the idea of a terrifying fedora-wearing dream stalker entered popular culture via films like Freddy Krueger in A Nightmare on Elm Street, our subconscious might have absorbed that image. Freddy Krueger was a horror villain who attacks people in their sleep, and he wears a fedora. It's not a huge leap to think that a generation raised on such movies might regurgitate a similar figure in the half-dream state. This notion that you can be attacked when you're asleep, that's when you're vulnerable. And of course, Krueger wears a hat. French noted, suggesting Freddy's influence on Hatman sightings. Add to that the countless Reddit threads and TikTok stories about Hatman, and a form of mass psychogenic imagery can spread. So from the skeptic's lens, shadow people, old hag, demons, and even reports of black-cloaked aliens are just culturally colored vibrations of the same sleep paralysis hallucination. A human universal experience misinterpreted in different ways at different times. From a move agnostic standpoint, one could even merge the views. Perhaps there are strange entities, call them spirits, jinn, and what have you, that sometimes interact with us, but our brains fill in the details. So it's kind of pareidolia, I think is what this is suggesting. A real but unseen presence might be perceived according to one's beliefs or fears. So a science-minded person in sleep paralysis might sense an intruder, but not see details. A Christian might see a demon, an X-Files fan might see an alien gray, and a folklore enthusiast might see a shadowy jinn, all interpreting the same presence. This is speculative, but it would reconcile why cultural differences exist despite similar core sensations. All right, now let's talk briefly about pop culture shadows, from TV to memes. No exploration of shadow people is complete without noting how they've infiltrated popular culture. Such eerie figures make perfect fodder for horror media and urban legends. As early as 1985, an episode of The Twilight Zone, The Shadow Man, featured a boy bedeviled by a shadowy man who lived under his bed. In the show, the Shadow Man wore a hat and coat perfectly matching the later Hat Man image. The episode added its own lore. The Shadow Man would not harm the child under whose bed he lived, but could harm others. A creepy twist on the idea of my personal monster. In film, shadow entities have appeared in movies like Shadow People, which fictionalized a story of a lethal sleep study where patients died after reporting shadowy intruders. A notable documentary, The Nightmare, in 2015, brought 8 people's sleep paralysis and shadow being experiences to life with dramatic reenactments. This docu-horror emphasized the connection between alien abduction stories and shadow figures, implying that many alien encounters might actually be episodes of sleep paralysis with typical shadow person features. Shadow beings have shown up in novels. For example, John Dies at the End features interdimensional shadow men erasing people from existence. And in video games, the cult game LSD Dream Emulator has a faceless gray man that feels like Catman's cousin, appearing in dreams to erase progress. There's even a metal song, The Shadow Man Incident, Dream Theater's 2025 album, inspired by the phenomenon, evidence that by now shadow people are entrenched in the zeitgeist. Can somebody check that? That seems a little too on the nose. It's Dream Theater, okay, is the name of the band, and it's called The Shadow Man Incident. On the internet, the Hat Man in particular has become a mix of creepy and comical. Memes abound of people joking about overdosing on Benadryl to meet the Hat Man. A dark joke given how dangerous that is. TikTok and YouTube have countless videos of people sharing their shadow person encounters or deliberately trying to induce lucid dreams to summon the Hat Man. People don't do that. Please don't do that. This ironic fame further blurs the line between genuine experience and folklore in the making. Yet behind the memes are very real frights. One could say shadow people have joined the ranks of the Slender Man or the Boogeyman as modern myth, but with the key differences that people have been seeing shadow folks for centuries, long before creepypastas or Hollywood existed. The internet simply gave a name and platform to something that was always lurking at the bedroom's edge. All right, so concluding thoughts. So we're going to have plenty of time to talk about all the other stuff I promised at the beginning. And thank goodness I have all that stuff prepared. We've journeyed through a landscape of nightmares and mysteries, from the ancient demon Lilith to the viral Hat Man of today. From physiological quirks of the sleeping brain to theories of extra-dimensional visitors. So what are shadow people ultimately? The safest answer? They are a real experience, subjectively real at least, that humans around the world have when caught between sleep and wakefulness, or in other altered states or liminal spaces. The forms these shadows take, whether a featureless black mass, a cloaked crone, or man in a hat, seem to be shaped by our culture and expectations. That points to our amazing brain's ability to generate visions and characters, especially when in the grip of primal fear. In that view, shadow people are inside us, manifestations of our own psyche under unusual conditions. Yet, after hearing the testimonies and global folklore, one can't help but wonder if something else lurks in the shadows as well. It may be that in some cases, those silhouettes at the foot of the bed are not just dreams, and that science simply hasn't caught up to explaining certain shared visions. Could an unseen intelligence be co-present with us, revealing itself only as a fleeting shadow? It's an idea that science would greet with skepticism. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, which shadow people lack. No one has caught a shadow being in a jar or on a clear video. But believers might counter that these entities, if real, probably exist in a form beyond our normal physical detection. Just as you won't catch a dream with a camera, perhaps you can't easily catch an interdimensional entity either. Whether one favors the psychological or paranormal explanation, one thing is clear. The experience of seeing shadow people is profoundly impactful. It taps into something elemental, our fear of the dark, of the unknown watching us, of being immobilized and vulnerable. In a sense, shadow people embody the ultimate unknown, literally dark and undefined, neither here nor there. They force us to confront how much we don't understand about our own minds and maybe about reality. Are they real? For a terrified person in that moment between dream and waking, the terror is most certainly real, and that counts for something. So the next time you catch a flicker in your peripheral vision at midnight, or feel an inexplicable presence in an empty room, ask yourself, is it just your mind playing tricks? Or is it one of the shadow folk slipping briefly into our world? We may never have definitive proof of one answer or the other, but as long as humans have dreams and darkness, we'll likely keep seeing the shadow people and searching for answers in their wake. Thank you very much, everyone. That concludes the first portion of our show tonight. So I think the next piece it could be, I don't know if it's going to be dry or not, but actually just in the not the comments, but in the chat, let me know if you want to see the video first or if you want me to go cover the Iran situation. Just let me know. By the way, the video will also have a lot of interaction with chat. While you're doing that, I'm going to go through the chat first. Dennis Duncan is writing Spy versus Spy. Okay, Spiritual Ascension is writing, Sean, your channel is full of the nicest, down-to-earth, like-minded people. Such a nice place to be. I appreciate that, Spiritual Ascension. Just hope that hopefully more people, click on my. The problem is not the videos. I don't think it's just YouTube's not showing it to people, so people aren't clicking on them. Okay. So Vet Girl 84 is saying Spiritual Ascension, yep, our familiars watch out for us as we watch out for them when they are sleeping. Spiritual Ascension is writing beautiful little fur babies. Alpha Draco is saying that's a great thing to keep in mind. It really helps in the world of mental health. It's wise to only focus on things that you can control and ignore the rest. Exactly. Okay. Vet Girl 84 is writing to Gray Owl. Ooh, gotta watch Secret Garden. Thanks for that. I love Stephen King and Johnny Depp. The cat in a box. Is that Johnny Topside? Is that a reference to Schrodinger's cat? I hope not. Loading Mike is writing, yep, reminds me of your interviews with Jerry Marzinski and the info yes. So Jerry Marzinski mentions specifically these parasitic entities that he doesn't believe are hallucinations. He believes they were actually his patients who were paranoid schizophrenics were actually seeing them. He also mentioned that when people go on meth, they start to see them as well. And when he started kind of investigating this and found a way to get rid of these entities, he got a visit at night from shadow people. So again, this guy worked at mental institutions, 40-year career, knows what he's talking about as a practitioner. Okay, so Alpha Draco is saying that's interesting. I worked underground in a deep freezer for a year or so, and I would see or get the impression of shadow entities all the time at work. Maybe it was poor air quality. It could also be it might have something to do with the Schumann resonance, right? If you're underground for a long period of time, you're not interacting with the Schumann resonance, which is like 7.83 hertz. It's like a global capacitor of electrical energy. Okay, so Vet Girl 84. So basically, drug users would put their walls down. That's yeah, exactly. Gray Owl is writing, it's a good one. Classic upstate New York at a reclusive writer's remote cabin in the woods. Okay, Vet Girl 84 is saying, I know that when they had me on psychiatric drugs to stop my crazy, it helped. It made it worse. I said, isn't those pills supposed to help? Yeah, according to Marzinski, is they just suppress the symptoms. They don't really fix the problem. Alpha Draco saying there's got to be more to it than brain tricks. I think so. I mean, many of the cases are probably just brain tricks, but I think there's some subset that's not the case. That Girl 84 is writing, I think it just made me even crazier. Spiritual Ascension is saying, I refused drugs when I was anxious, told them I ain't relying on drugs for quality of life. Instead, I did some cognitive behavior therapy. Gone. Yep. Loading Mike, Vet Girl, have you seen interviews with Jerry Mazinski on here? Would recommend those when talking about psychiatry and medication and entities. Yeah, I have 3 interviews, one on the radio show, and then if you just go to my playlists, right, click on play. You know what? Maybe I should just show people how to do that. Um, let's do that. Let's probably just give me a second. All right, it's gonna. All right, so I'm just gonna share my screen and just show folks how to do that because I tell people that the stuff exists, but I don't think they ever really get a chance. Now I gotta find. I have so many tabs open on this thing that I've. Okay. I hope you all can still see me. Am I? Yeah, I'm here twice. Okay, can you hear me now? All right, can you hear me now? I'm hearing like a bad feedback loop. All right, can you hear me at least? Oh my god. All right, I'm gonna try to find the original thing and then All right. There's like a hell? All right. I'm gonna try to do something drastic. Bear with me. All right. Sounds pretty sounds pretty terrible. How does that sound? Oh, fuck. Ugh. Yeah, I can hear myself too. It's really painful. Let's see if I can find and there's a clicking that I can hear behind me. Mhm. Oh, great, and then some asshole changed my icon. Now I'm, like, really pissed off. Now I feel like I gotta fix that. Alright. Now it's fixed. Yeah, this is driving me crazy. Like, I'm hearing myself, and it's really bothering me, so I just took off my headphones, and I have, like, 2 images of myself below. It's super freaking frustrating. Alright, anyway, sorry for that. I think I accidentally closed my browser, which is which is why I had to, like, log back in. I mean, did I disappear for, like, I mean, I disappeared several times, but alright, alright, I'm just going through. Sorry for the profanity, but do you all hear, like, clicking sounds? Yeah, I do. I have 2 instances of the stream going on right now, and I can't get rid of one of them. But there's, like, no way for me to eliminate it. Maybe if there is. There's literally, like, no way for me to end one of maybe. Let me try one thing. I'm afraid to do. All right. Let me have the other one, the studio. Just give me a second. Wow. Well, we'll see what happens because I'll just come right back. Oh, man. It's telling me changes might not be saved, and I don't know. Let me see if I can hear anything on this one. Can I hear anything on this one? Anyway, it's driving me crazy, so I'll just keep going. Are you hearing an echo with me? Yes, especially, like, when I say something and then I immediately hear what I just said. Like, it's one thing to hear myself in real time, it's another to hear an echo of myself. Oh, so you hear it clicking. Okay, alright, good. Alright. Alright, here we go. Alright, so what do people wanna look at? Do we wanna look at the video first, or you want me to go to the Iran stuff? Iran stuff or the video? Still have plenty of time. Hmm. Alright, we got 1 vote for video. That's true. That's true. We got 1 vote for video. By the way, apologies for all the mess, but if you're enjoying me look like an incompetent piece of you know what, I'm like looking at like 2 pictures of myself below. It's really freaking frustrating. But please like, subscribe, share if you're enjoying it. I got 1 vote for video. Come on, guys. 1 vote for the video. Anyone else? Alright, 2 votes for the video. Alright, I'll give it a minute. Going once, going twice. Just a minute. Alright, we got 3 votes for video. Alright, I think that's enough. I'm just gonna go with the video. Let me just arrange this thing. All right, this appears to be a Starlink train. Okay. I am recording. All right. The top of the tree line so you can. I'm gonna stop it right there. You see these 3 lights? This is in my backyard. I saw last night. Okay. Right now, you just see kind of darkness. I'll quickly orient you to a tree line, so you'll be able to see at least have some sense of scale. But 3 lights in a line. Okay. See the motion as it goes past. don't think I've ever seen something like this before. I think it's interesting. All right, you see kind of the tree line there? It's a little bit harder to see. Okay. And then I'm moving the camera
so you can see the rest of the train.
See, this one's moving.
Okay.
But it's like a train, right? Ignore that. That's a star.
Okay.
All right, we're done. I told you the video was relatively quick. So that's weird. Okay. All right. So what do people think that was? All right. So Great Owl's ring. This is good, Sean. There will come a time when such things will be the only evidence of life other than AI hosts. You keep it real. Would it count if I threw a vote? Oh, okay, good. You guys could see the trees. I can't because I have a bright light like right behind me or right in front of me. So, uh, I don't know. I don't know. All right, I think it's Starlink. Uh, so I think it's Starlink. Um, let me see what time it happened roughly. I personally think it's Starlink, but and I'm sure somebody could check. Let me see what the date of this thing is. Wait, not the date, but it happened last night. Looks like I can't see a damn thing. Let me just I just have a billion things open on my desktop. Oh, for Christ's sake. This thing's taking like everything has to take 10 times longer than it should. All right. All right, that's not hopeful. Okay, so it was yesterday at 10:16 p.m. that I saw that. So if anybody has access to something that tells you where Starlink is, um, I kind of don't want to give my location, but I think it's Starlink. I don't think there's anything magic about it. Well, the one moving autonomously could just be an airplane flying high, right? Let me see if there's a. Let me just do a quick internet search. Hmm. Yeah, I just want to avoid everything has to be an app. I really don't want to download yet another app. Mm, all right. So it's yeah, may have been. I said 10:16, so it said 10:10 yesterday. That's probably yeah, it's local time. So yeah, for 4 minutes, it was northwest to northeast. So hmm, I mean, he was definitely flying from the northwest to the southeast for sure. So it's probably Starlink. My best guess is it's Starlink. Anyway, oh, they launched 27 satellites yesterday. Yeah, I found one that said that they were kind of in my area at 10:10. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Starlink. Huh. On Saturday, June 28th at 10:13 a.m. But that's 10:13 a.m. and I'm way north of Vandenberg. No, it just kept going. It just kept going. Yeah, and it's good to just post that stuff to give people a sense for what those things actually look like. So I'm 90% sure it's Starlink, right? I'm 90% sure. So, all right, let's move on to the next one. We still have 15 minutes, so let's go to the next piece where we're going to talk a little bit of geopolitics. So, since when I was kind of in Tennessee, where that's kind of where I went for a few days, um, when I had my uh, you know, pre-recorded live stream, there was Trump attacked Iran, um, which you know, how do I say this without I've never liked Trump, but I found the other side to be even more distasteful for a variety of different reasons. So the behavior that he showed in this particular attack, in the short run, appears to be playing out, but I thought was utterly reckless and stupid. But I still wouldn't have changed you know, where I went. But I think what effectively was happening is that Israel, like a mad dog, attacked Iran and got into a fight that it couldn't finish, and they kind of they kind of misjudged how many ballistic missiles that Iran had, and you know the cost of an interceptor is like 100 times, or I'd have to check, but it is infinitely more expensive than the cost of a cheap ballistic missile. And Iran had a ton of cheap ballistic missiles. The Israelis were probably a week away from running out of interceptors. And Iran was starting to significantly damage Israeli infrastructure. So Trump had to kind of come in to break the stalemate, right? And just or not break, and to end the conflict in a way that allowed it to. Hold on for a second. Just give me a second. All right, sorry about that. I'm just getting like unacceptable noise from my side of the really driving me crazy. Yeah, I know you heard it now because that's my developmentally disabled daughter stimming. It's driving me crazy. So I'm sorry about that, but like I'm not yelling at you, vet girl. I'm just like there's certain people who we're supposed to kind of keep her out of the space, and they're not doing their jobs right now. So, but yeah, you heard a growl because it's just stimming. Um, sorry, I'm just looking at. Okay, so light at U.S. expert is saying, do you know who Martin Armstrong is? The man who invented Socrates, which is very accurate predicting events. It sees World War III and it will peak. And let's kind of be very careful what words we're using. I'm focusing specifically on Israel. Yeah, it's the stimming, that girl. Um, I know. It's just like every time. That's why you'll hear me periodically. I'll raise my voice as I'm talking. It's because it's to like drown out that noise. So, um, what was I going to say? So, I think what happened is that, like a mad dog, Israel full heartedly attacked a country with 10 times the population, which was like wildly larger. They thought their gee whiz bang, leadership decapitation would, you know, disempower an entire country, which our Air Force thinks the same thing. And frankly, they're stupid to think that because that's just not the way things work. And then also, like, they're bringing back this like pasha or whatever, this king of Iran concept, which is like with a democracy, and then here's your king. Like what the hell are these people thinking? Like they just, it's so dumb. It's so dumb. I'm surprised that the Iranians didn't mine the Strait of Hormuz, but what that tells me is that what Trump did was largely performative, right? So I'm about to show you, for people who don't know, I did my master's thesis on this 19 years ago. My thesis advisor was Dr. Ashton Carter, who 8 years later subsequently became Obama's Secretary of Defense. Okay. Um, okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to get through all this. So late U.S. by saying Socrates saw the U.S., Israel, and NATO versus Russia, China, and Iran ends in 2032. Oh my God. China will be the new financial powerhouse. Socrates saw China attacking Taiwan before. Do we really need to be on Israel's side on this one? Can't we just stay out of it? Like it's just like it's more, nibble, 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 more. It's just like they're attacking everybody, and they're just antagonizing their neighbors, and then we're getting like the blowback for it. Look, I don't support Iran. I'm not like, waving the Palestinian flag, but like Israel is out of control right now. So anyway, we had to step in, bomb this Fordo complex. I am 99.999% certain that we did not destroy their nuclear program, because that's not how destroying Iran's nuclear program would look. Why? Because I researched this in depth. To wit, let me show you. Okay. This is my master's thesis. Now, I don't know if there's a way to make this bigger. I think there is, unfortunately. So, and let me get rid of the thing at the top. Yeah, I mean, if I just move myself out of it, it doesn't help. So it's still extremely small. So let me pull up, let me get rid of one thing. Damn it. Just give me a second. Okay. I know it's hard to see. It's driving me a little bit crazy, obviously. All right, that's probably going to be the best I'm going to get. Okay. Let's just go through this. So I'll go to a specific. I mean, first of all, you can see the cover, right? Look at whose names are on the cover. So you have Dr. Ashton B. Carter. Okay. That's weird how it's doing that, but whatever. But I examined this problem in detail. I looked at two options. One was strategic adjustment. So these are the areas of the nuclear fuel cycle you have to bomb in order to get rid of it. But there's coercion, and then there's strategic adjustment. Strategic adjustment is learning to love, is basically containing Iran in the event that they have nuclear weapons. Coercion is preventing them from getting them. Okay. This is just an analysis looking at like their oil fields, where the targets are. This is looking at the growth in our the strategic petroleum reserve, which I think has declined significantly after Biden. But again, this is 19 years ago. So these are the options that I looked at, right? So I can barely see this. So the first is this. I looked at a precision strike, which is basically what Trump would have been what Trump did. So the operational risk is low, but the strategic risk is high, right? And obviously, the strategic risk is high is because Iran's nuclear program is so deeply buried and in so many different locations that you're very unlikely to succeed in a strategic attack. And that would lead to, once the cat's out of the bag, you would have the Iranians go full on to acquire a nuclear weapon. The intelligence, apparently, according to Tulsi Gabbard, was not, the director of national intelligence, they were not working on a bomb, but I can damn well assure you they are now. The first step is they're no longer letting nuclear inspectors from the IAEA in. Can you blame them? Because those inspectors are probably infiltrated. They're probably sending back intelligence to locations, the Israelis, etc. So what the long-term effect of this, while it was a very tactically successful operation, like, they were able to hit target, no casualties, etc., it will likely be seen as one of the most strategically incompetent decisions that we've ever made. And the reason that is because it's going to start a proliferation spiral in the Middle East, where first the Iranians are going to nuclear weapons. They don't even necessarily need to get them from developing them internally. They might just get a few bombs from Pakistan or China or North Korea, what have you. But you can be pretty damn well assured that they're change their minds. if they hadn't already, and they're going to go full on go for broke because imagine being in a situation where you have to pull your punches because your adversary, namely Israel, has a nuclear weapon. And by the way, they haven't signed the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, right? Which basically everybody else has. They haven't admitted that they have nuclear weapons, but they behave like a mad dog because they're backed up by it. They should not have nuclear weapons. They should have inspections, but they don't. They don't play by any of the rules everybody else plays by. So uh, we effectively did a precision strike, high risk, and we fucked up. Okay, you're just not seeing the effect of that now, but that is definitely the case. Then there's kind of a comprehensive bombing campaign, and that's kind of right. That's just operational risk is kind of low, and the strategic risk is middle, right? And that's what I would have proposed if you actually intended to take out the Iranian nuclear program, which I don't think was the intent. I think the intent was to prevent Tel Aviv from being destroyed in the battle of attrition between Iranian missile and uh, extremely expensive interceptors that the Israelis and us, by the way, were dangerously close to running out of. All right. Um, then I also looked at a little ground campaign called the Khuzestan Gambit, which is to seize the southwest oil fields in Kurdistan in Iran. Again, that's high strategic risk. Operational risk is mid because you'd have U.S. forces, boots on the ground, and it would be below summer. You'd have all sorts of crazy terrorism, Iran Revolutionary Guards, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's the kind of the full scale ground campaign, which is high strategic risk, high operational risk, would be an absolute disaster. Don't recommend. Okay. So let me just see if there's anything else to note because this is, again, it's pretty comprehensive. This is just a decision tree analysis of different options. This is a game theoretic analysis, right? Where between the U.S. and Iran based on its interest, Iran's dominant strategy is to be conservative. Um, the U.S.'s kind of dominant strategy is kind of a Nash equilibrium. I'm not going to get into it, but anyway, let me just see if there's anything else. Uh, and this is like all the I had case studies in the back, which looked at the operation for the Israelis to. We talked about Khuzestan, that's kind of this area, major oil fields. But you could find this. You just type in my name, Sean Hazlett, comma Iran. You can find this on Harvard's website, on the Belfer Center website. This is just all the kind of backup for the analysis. Okay. One thing I also want to point you to is not only was Ash Carter the my advisor, but my client was Ambassador Nick Burns, who was number 3 at the State Department at the time. It was during the Bush administration. And the coercive thing, it was like a slow build. It started with political sanctions and then followed by economic sanctions. And then the next step was military sanctions. The Bush administration actually, I think, started the first two. But also, you can see Ambassador Nick Burns here. Well, right now he's the U.S. ambassador to China, which is also kind of crazy. So, anywho, wow, I just burned right through. My time. All right, so let me go through all the comments really quickly. Where did I end up? Now I'm completely lost. Okay, sorry. I am like way behind. I'm just trying to find my place in the comments because I want to get. I'm already 2 minutes over, so you're getting extra time from me for whatever that's worth. All right, here we go. Yeah, he was doing good stuff the first 100 days. And after that, it's been like more of the same. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Soleil U.S. is writing. I'm pissed that Trump set to drop criminal charges against Netanyahu. People need to see the beat. Yeah, I hope that piece of shit goes to prison. I can't stand that. It's just the monsters trying to wipe out the other monsters. You know. All right. So Vet Girl 84 is come from a long list of spiritual topic podcasts tonight. So my walls are way down on spiritual activity. Never apologize for stimming. She is self-regulating. Stop me. Yeah, I know. Uh, yeah, but I'm not yelling. I'm yelling at people in the house to get her, move her somewhere else. Um, all right, so like USX, how about just drop the sanctions on Iran, let them have enriched uranium up to a low number, what it is, three something percent, and try to. Yeah, that's where I am right now. Like they were the only adults in the room in that little situation. They were very calibrated. They could have done a lot more damage to the global economy, and they didn't. Uh, which are you talking? So, Timepiece Adventures, right? Sean, if comfortable doing so, can you please share this? I can send you a link via text. Are you talking about the master's thesis, or are you talking about the video? Yeah, uranium weapon is easier to manufacture, but it's a hell of a lot harder to put on a missile. So, like U.S. President, everybody has a right to nuclear power, but do you see why people want the bomb? Well, yeah, yeah. If I lived next to Israel, I'd be building the bomb immediately. Um, Question, Sean. I know it wouldn't be included in the paper necessarily, but at the time that you researched and assembled this assessment paper, did any consideration of NHI interest in nukes pass through? In your no, not at all, not at all, not at that time. Yeah. If, all right. So, Woo Rudders, a sniper shot two firefighters in Idaho responding to a call. They are to stand off with the suspect now. Press for protection of the first responder. Yeah, what's that all about? And then Solite US expat. Well, I guess Iran is ramping up the production of hypers. Yeah, I would too. No, they haven't declared World War III yet. I hope it's not happening. That would be nice. Yeah, it was. I enjoyed doing it. All right. So Solite US expert said I did listen to some Iranian women talking about how bad women are treated in Iran. It's too bad that that is happening. I wish there was regime change, but not by us, but the Iranian people. Yeah, it's just. But replacing the mullahs with a king, it's ridiculous. All right, sounds good. Adventures. Yeah, I wish I had time to waste. That's my problem. All right, good to see you. Gray Owl. All right. So Wu Riders teacher Sean letting you know he was in production of a movie. Now they finished shooting and are preparing the film. Nothing big, low budget movie. Yeah, tell him. I need to should interview him. All right, Alpha Draco saying I'm heading to bed. Great show, Sean. Thanks for what you've been doing. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Girl 884. He writes, we love you, Sean. Take your time. Okay, so Bray Allison said that Rush was briefed Trump on Nordics and hybrids. Interesting. Writers G says very difficult to get in touch with, and I don't know why. Not hard to pick up the phone. It's probably just busy. Um, Loading Mike says you should do. We're made to have a 24/7 news about everything that happens all over the world. If you don't filter out something, we definitely go crazy. Okay, yeah. I mean, it's online. It's just go to Google, type in Sean Hazlett, and then comma Iran, and it'll be like the sixth search item down. It'll say like Belfer Center. It'll be like a Harvard link. Yeah, I reached out to her, no response. So like US Advisor, did you ever email Catherine Austin Fitz to try to get her on the show? Yeah, no response. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. And it was a pleasure seeing you all. Talk soon.